What do you need to know about putting your parrot outside? Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new, I have 22 species of parrots. I love parrots. Parrots are my bliss. And I love sharing about my bliss and hopefully inspiring you to have a more blissful bond with your parrot, because I think there's nothing better. If you're not new and you're used to hanging out, I hope you've already subscribed and set your preferences so that YouTube lets you know the next time there's a video. Today we're talking about putting your parrots outside. With the weather warming up here in Florida, it's already hot. Someone asked me a really great question, which was kind of like, how do I know when or how to put my parrot outside? So here are the things that you want to look out for and keep track of when you put your parrots outside. Number one, putting your parrot outside is a wonderful, fantastic thing. The sun's really good for their feathers. It disinfects their feathers and it helps them to bones, calcium, right? Yeah. Number two, there's fresh air outside. Fresh air is like magic. Now, when you put your parrot outside, what you want to be careful of is you want to make sure that they are going to be physically safe. I guess physically. In other words, if you put their cage outside, be really careful. You know, one of my neighbors, we keep trying to hint, she has a pair of lovebirds that are in a smallish cage and she puts them outside. Now, putting them outside is great, but the fact that it's a smallish cage and the fact that she doesn't have a lanai like I do you see the white bars? That has screening so that my parrots can't fly out and I don't have any predators flying in. That means that there's like double protection if I put a pair of lovebirds out here in a small cage. I don't have lovebirds. But if I didn't have that lanai, a predator bird or a cat or a dog or a human, I mean, I guess a human could do it anyway, but you know, they could come along and knock the cage over. It's not like it hasn't happened before. They can, depending on how strong the bird is, depending on, you know, all sorts of things, or a cat or a dog, they can get in and kill your birds, or maybe even just let them escape. So that's one peril to watch out for. It means that you want to make sure that either you're supervising or whatever the outside scenario is for your parrot, it's one where no other animal can come and get to them. Number two, and you can kind of get a good sense that even if you had a really great cage and it was well locked and you know, you're like, okay, that's not a problem. That's not gonna be an issue. The next thing you want to think about is, here's your cage, here's a wild bird flying overhead, and if the wild bird happens to land on your cage and poop in it, or they don't usually poop when they're flying, but if they happen to poop, I mean, some do, when they're flying, and it lands in your parrot's cage and in their food or their water or just the cage, and they happen to ingest any of the wild parrot's poop, now a disease could be introduced. In other words, you want to make sure that their food and their water are nicely covered so that nothing can get in and introduce something that you don't want, new germs. As a matter of fact, along those lines, you also want to make sure that you have enough shade so that your parrot can escape the sun if they're hot, because if they're not acclimated, that's an issue. And you also want to make sure that, you know, some of my cages have like this little water dish and, you know, it works for Emerald, but if she was really hot and she wanted to take a bath, this wouldn't work. So I always make sure that when it's hot, my parrots have something that they can get into. I always make sure that it's not any higher than a little, you know, maybe a little above their feet, that kind of thing. And they do a really good job of splashing it up, which means they could use it up. And so you got to keep your eye on your parrot's water. But in other words, I want something that they're not going to drown in, something that they can easily stand in, but something they can really cool off in if they choose to. And yes, this is supposed to be their drinking water, so you want to keep your eye on it, because once they take a bath, you really would be better off changing their water out if you can. Now, the next thing, making sure that your parrot's acclimated. If your parrot's used to living in 72 degrees in your home, because like let's say that's the temperature you keep your home at, and then you put your parrot outside and it's like 92, it could be too much for your parrot, especially if they're in the sun. You want to make sure that their cage is somewhere, like I said, that they really have some shade, but on top of that, if your parrot's not used to being out, don't put them out during the hottest part of the day. Maybe either don't put them out, or you're going to have to try to really work with them so that they can adjust. Maybe put them out for an hour in the morning or in the evening when it's cooler. Maybe put them out and make sure like you can really give them maybe a really big, wide, narrow bath, maybe with ice cubes in it so they can really cool down. You know, whatever it is, you're going to have to get a little creative and kind of figure out what's going to work for letting them get used to the temperature change. Basically, it's not that a parrot can't handle it, but for example, the parrots that I have that are outside, they started outside when the temperature was like 70-ish. And then that way, as the temperature changed, my parrots got used to it, so it wasn't a problem. Or I'll put my parrots out for a little while in the morning or a little while in the evening, like I was saying, so that they get some of that fresh air and sunshine, but they aren't going to have to adjust to being outside for 8 hours or something like that when they're not used to it. The other thing I like to do is I like to put a harness on my parrot. I have a couple parrots that I like to walk, put them on my shoulder and go around the block. That way, if they got really hot and started to pant, kind of like a dog, I would know that they were too hot. Plus, it's just a walk, so usually it's not long enough to really like cause any problems. And that way, I'm supervising, they're with me, and they're getting some fresh air and some sunshine. Your parrot is supposed to get about 10 hours of sunshine per week. And that's for their own well-being, like I said, for their feathers, that kind of thing. Now, the truth is, when I've asked experts how much time they should get outside in the sun, every expert either doesn't answer or they give me a slightly different answer, and I think that's because there really isn't enough research on it. So the best number I've heard is 10, and hopefully that gives you an idea. You know, that means that if I take a bird out for a total of, you know, a little over an hour worth of walking per day, that would work. So I hope that helps you out and gives you some ideas. There's nothing better than in letting your parrot get some fresh air, be touched by the sunshine, which could even help them grow. I'm kidding. But it is really beneficial for their feathers. It's really beneficial for their well-being. And so it's a great thing to do for your parrot. Thank you for the question. If your parrot is stressed out for any reason, like maybe if they're getting stressed out as you're starting to walk them in whatever safe way you walk them, maybe in a backpack, maybe on a harness, then consider getting Pink's must-have parrot relief on parrotbliss.com. It is CBD in hemp oil. The hemp oil is super beneficial because it's omega-3s and 6s in the right balance, so it's beneficial, and the CBD can help calm your parrot. Thank you for joining me in this blissful video. I'll catch you next time.